Good morning. So I am up and having some yellow duck infusion. I'm coming up on my final few days of the week of having it incorporated. And as I mentioned before, there's a lot that I noticed just from my career about how women are enculturated into believing they need to show up. And I realize that sometimes the things that I say, the things that I do can come off as subversive or intentionally going against the grain. And so I wanted to, before I even work with cards, if I work with cards today, I wanted to just sit with and give you a couple of my thoughts on why some of those things are, right? So when we're told how a woman is supposed to show up in the world, she's supposed to look her best. And by her best, we really mean she's supposed to not come up natural. She's supposed to put on makeup, put on all these things that show this image of perfection as we have been taught to believe a woman is supposed to look. And so when a woman actually comes up as her natural self, she's called ugly. She said, it said that she's not put together, things of that nature. And I realized that we do ourselves a disservice when we don't allow ourselves to just be, right? So for instance, it is 8:10 in the morning on Monday, and I am, like I said, I'm having my tincture, but I've already gotten dressed, right? I've brushed my teeth, I've washed my face, I've moisturized my skin. I'm ready for the day, right? I have my silk scarf over my hair because, again, I gotta protect my beautiful natural strands from the elements, right? But I moisturized it yesterday. I put flax seed gel on it, homemade flaxseed gel, right, to nourish it and to help it be manageable. I've also added oils to it and water, right? So my hair is hydrated and moisturized. Like I am healthy, right? I didn't go to sleep cold. I didn't go to sleep without a meal. Like in a lot of ways, I'm ready for the world, right? I have on a couple bits of jewelry. My basic grooming is managed, right? I have moisturizer on my lips. I have some nail hardener on my nails because I've been having fun with colors. So as most women know, depending on how pigmented the nail polish is, it may discolor your nails, right? And so usually I'll do a separate treatment where I have alcohol and again, just some other like scrubbing methods of getting the stains out of my nails, especially when I wear darker pigments like black or red. They tend to stain the nail beds, right? But again, these are things just as a woman you have learned over time. But we are taught that we're supposed to add on all these other things to us in order to make us beautiful, put together, and acceptable in society's eyes, right? And I'm tired, right? I realized how much and why I love my career in the background roles where it's like there was no expectation for me to show up other than like you show up and you do your work, right? So I have on my hoodie, I have on my workout gear, and then I also have on like some uh, little footsies because again, it's wintertime, right? And I'm in the house, but it's still winter. So even though it's mostly warm, I'm trying to keep my internal body heat at a comfortable level so that I can be okay, right? Because I am going to go outside, be in the cold elements, etc. But it's no reason for me to be uncomfortable. And I just realized that like there are so many people who have an opinion on how a woman should be in order for her to be desirable, in order for her to be employable, in order for her to be likable. And it's like, but no one stops to ask a woman how she chooses to self define, right? I'm still a woman, right? And it made me think about just how, again, there is this dominant narrative that a woman is supposed to look put together. And oftentimes that does not include the natural Black woman, right? Where, like I said, again, my skin is healthy. My own metrics of success are my own. But to a lot of people, it's like, oh, she's not camera ready. And it's like, but why? Right? We kind of play in both worlds where we know that there's like what we look like before we get all dolled up and then what we look like after we're dolled up. But now the expectation is that women are always dolled up regardless of what they're doing. And I thought about it, right? Like, why, you know, people tend to talk about like obesity, or why, people don't work out. And it's like, again, look at the two conflicting narratives that you're telling people, right? Have on a full face of makeup by the time you wake up, right? Always look your best. And even when you look at the fashion and the culture, if even if you looked at white history of fashion, it has changed so much. But we recently started having this athletic culture recently, right? Most of the people just sat around, were fat and happy, right? They ate, they may have done little sports, but it's not the same hustle grind culture that we have on the human body today, right? And I thought about this because, again, we often see fad diets, we see supplement, we see poisoning by supplements, we see all sorts of harmful actions because of the extreme nature that we have in relationship to our body and what society tells us is normal, what it's supposed to look like, etc. But I had to chuckle to myself where I'm like, okay, wait, if I have on my workout gear and I like put my makeup on and I go work out and then I wipe all that makeup off because I'm sweating, what was the point? I'm going to like literally give my body exercise. I don't need, and again, if this isn't eco-friendly makeup that I'm putting on, only the chemists know what is in this formula of this makeup that I'm putting on. So like that's being seeped into my pores. And so that's why I said like just we are comfortable being lied to because none of this makes sense. Like when you really sit down and think about it, it's like, okay, yes, I can go to a gym, right? But like I said, the community that I live in, we have a clubhouse with our own gym. Most often than not, there's no one, or at least maybe two or three people in there at a time, right? That's it. That's enough for me. I've had gym memberships at big luxury gyms, and then the $15 a month gyms where it's like a whole bunch of people, and that's overwhelming for me, right? Like just that stimulation, the loud bumping music, all different sorts of people. Going and sharing a gym locker room, and where even if you have a lock on your locker, someone may pick it. Like there's all these safety issues that come up, the hygiene, right? Everyone is expected to clean up behind the machines after they use it. Not everybody does it. There's so many things that like your mind goes through where it's like, but why? Right? I could go walk outside. Like I said, for me in particular, I can work out in my home, I can work out at the clubhouse, and I will be okay. And so that's why I realized, you know, you were you are okay when you stick to what you know is how you live and what works best for you, and stop listening to all these people who have an opinion. They have a platform, it's wonderful, but you already had your roadmap. You have your roadmap. Sure, if you want to pivot and change a couple of variables, but you have your game plan, right? And ultimately, like how I view myself is more important than how others view it, right? I know I'm beautiful inside and out. I know the work that I do to make myself um, a nice, kind human in society, right? I know what I need to do to reach my financial goals. I know that I need to have customers. I know that I need to be able to deliver a product or service in the time that's specified by the MSA and the SLA and all those other legal jargons if I wanted to go that route, right? But just as a person, it's like we overwhelm ourselves with the expectation of others. And that's how we're living our lives. We're living our lives through this lens of what good is, what right is. And that looks so different for so many people. I meet people from all walks of life, and that's why I've never really had an issue with going back and working in retail, regardless of what job I've had in corporate or what have you, because at the end of the day, you're still helping people, right? You're still working with people, you're still learning about yourself and others. And so just throughout the weekend, I met so many wonderful individuals who are navigating the holidays or with friends. They may be happy, they may not be. And I'm just reminded of how fragile the mind is, right? Like just what we are telling ourselves. So many people are overcoming a lot. I spent some time mostly reading this weekend, but also listened to a couple of videos, two of which I shared from Oprah's podcast. One was talking about the young male crisis, why are young men in crisis, and the other was going no contact with family. And both of those were really helpful because even in my own journey, just some of the ways in which I've had to protect myself emotionally and mentally from people that may be relatives, but I have deemed that they are not necessarily safe for me where I am in my journey, right? Not because I'm conflict avoidant, but because time and time again, when I make myself vulnerable in relation to them, they have shown that they do not respect my boundaries or do not respect my being as someone who is entitled to having a safe space, regardless of how big their personality is, right? And I tend to get diminished in the sea of whatever foolery they choose to embody at that moment. And I'm like, again, I'm a full grown adult. I don't have to be around you anymore. We're not kids, right? Like, we're not sitting by any pressure of our parents to be in the same room. And even for like the older generations or whatever, it's like, okay, we're all adults. We don't have to have a relationship, right? And that is what it is. And so as I am meeting people and talking to people in the world, I'm meeting other women and other men who have these type of dynamics with their relationships and their families and stuff too. And one conversation in particular where it's like, there are a lot of black women who are nurturing themselves at this moment because their childhood was taken from them, meaning they either had to be ad hoc parents to their siblings, or there was pressure applied to them to help where another parent like walked out and didn't tend to their responsibilities, and they were forced as the oldest child to step up and help, right? And so at this point in their lives, whether they're 50, 60, 70, they are now going back and reclaiming that part of themselves that was lost. And so when I realize a lot of those things, I'm like, again, even now where you have a platform like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, you can't control the algorithm. If you engage with something you like, you comment, you're going to get more and more of that type of content, right? But in the world, even if you're not into um, energy, frequency, and vibration or any of those things, if you don't have a religion, you may just assume that you're meeting people by happenstance, right? And so, again, if you open yourself up to certain conversations, you realize that the human condition is what it is, right? We give meaning to any of this stuff, but most of all, we have something happen and then we adjust and pivot accordingly. Just because you are an adult in age doesn't mean you're an adult mentally, right? Because something may have happened to you that stunted your emotional capacity or your mental capacity, right? And so how you would expect to be able to relate to an individual that's your age or anything like that may be altered depending on life circumstances. And so again, when you start talking about you have to look this way in order to be loved, you have to look this way in order to be accepted, it's reinforcing that very notion of like, this is good and this is bad. But when you say good and when you look at what good is, it means consumerism, right? Because you have to buy the makeup, you have to from I was about to just say it plainly without putting a preface that most women, even white women, wear hair extensions, okay? And I love, this is why I'm like, I really am glad that I'm making a YouTube channel, because I get so tired of hearing all these tropes about black women don't love their hair. And I'm like, do y'all know how these white women really get down in these salons? They have extensions too. But again, this whole notion that white is right and black is wrong. And it's like, again, stay out of people's business, right? But again, even from me, I am noticing how pervasive a lot of this messaging is, because again, we're getting bombarded with subliminal messages of this is what you should do, this is how you should be. Even in a society, as an adult, like most people do not stop and think about how they want their life to be. They just go based on what they were told is normal. This is what you do, you live, you work, you die. And for a lot of people, that will be okay. And this is not the message for them. The message that I am delivering is for the people who are actively embodying the life that they chose to live, right? Knowing that some things are dissolving away and newer things are coming in, right? And so again, when I usually wear my contacts, but today again, I was like, I just did this yesterday. I'm gonna put on my glasses today. I'm gonna go slower on Monday, because again, Mondays are my day off until I have a full-time job or something like that, where Mondays I am working, right? Because technically, as someone who is constantly in sales, right, constantly meeting people, talking to people, getting them to buy into this idea of, hey, maybe I would be a good addition to your network. Maybe you will be a good addition to my network. Never not working. And so, again, this whole notion of work life balance, it's like the whole world is a stage. We're always performing, and very seldom will you have people, especially women, who will be willing to be as vulnerable and honest in the way that I am, right? Again, to each their own. What goes on in other people's household is their business. But when I started looking at the nuts and bolts of healing, when I started looking at the nuts and bolts of the communication that's being rewarded as this is the way we want things to go, I looked at the erasure of why healing was taking place in the first place. I looked at the erasure of the civilizations that cultivated the herbs, cultivated the lands, and actually had this information not written down but passed down orally, right? So you had your town shaman who was the medicine person that everyone went to for healing. And again, when you look at the merging of religion and even the healthcare industry, and you look at how much we lost with this industrialization, we forgot so many people, right? And so to get to a place where I am finally looking at the difference between something that comes in a package that lists out all the supplements to me, right? What it's made up with, right? Versus something that is coming from the earth. That from the earth, it doesn't have a supplement label, right? There's some disconnect between the people that know what's in this and then the people that do this. And that's what I mean by wellness, right? It's a billion-dollar industry. Regardless if you go the supplement route, regardless if you go the food route, regardless if you go the real estate route, there's a clear erasure of the people who know versus the people who were taught. And again, to each their own. But when you get to a place and you say, okay, yes, when we look at research, when we look at the history that has been preserved, because again, even with the erasure of history, which some people call it historicide, there's still so much that was lost intentionally. There's so much that was destroyed intentionally. We see it in all civilizations, right? And part of the reason why me going to a predominantly white institution, but then still living in a very African American dominant county is because, again, there is a disconnect between what white people are taught as history and what African Americans are taught as history. I am not here to kumbaya any of this together because, again, there are real enemies. There are real threats to my safety, other people's safety, just based on the ignorance and racism that is spewed as propaganda. So for me to take something and say something as simple as, oh, makeup, how women are taught that they have to show up in the world, right? Like, that's just a small segment of the overall racism and the structure of, like, white is right, you all don't know anything. But as we know, oftentimes Black people's intellect is siphoned, Black people's labor is siphoned to prop up these institutions of white wealth. And we see it in all industries. And so again, by the time you start looking at, okay, well, where did this come from? Can we all have like just a general people's historical record of how we all got here, right? And what we need to do to move forward. That's where some of my research really it takes place, right? The intersections of all these things that we normalize as living and the standard of living and the negative connotations that may come with that, right? Because in a lot of ways, I am successful, right? In a lot of ways, my family is successful. In a lot of ways, my community is successful. And then you have the real reality of how much I am earmarked to make based on what the census labels me as Black or African American, based on the zip code that I live in, right? And so all the economic opportunities or lack thereof that will come to me based on this demographic profile that has been created about me. And then again, how I am expected to show up in the world, you know, put together in spite of all of these things, right? I could be done up to the nines. And again, legally, all these conditions still exist because of the policies that are in place that subjugate me. So again, it's like how I look isn't always the reflection and the reality of what society deems me to be. And so when you start talking about the hamster wheel of, again, a woman is supposed to be thin, she's supposed to have her own hair, and it has to come down to her butt. And again, she should be doing XYZ and doing this and doing this and doing that. And it's like, again, those are all fairy tales that someone has told me this is the way of living. I have to carve out my own lane because right now I'm more interested in knowing how to take care of this vessel. How it looks to other people, it's none of my business. I don't care, right? What I do care about is when I go get my lab tests, how are my iron levels, right? How's my thyroid? How's my heart? How are my eyes? How's my scalp, right? How's my skin health? Is there any cancer? Is there this? Is there that? Because again, when you look at the exposure of sun that we get, the amount of chemicals that are in everything that we fill our house with, right? Um, Everything is intentional, right? We use low VOC paint and stuff like that, right? But it's still a chemical compound. So it's slowly seeping into the air. Okay, we get air filters and we change them every 3 months. Okay, then we take it out and we look and see how dirty the air is. And it's like, these are the cycles that we're on, right? Like you're constantly purifying or cleaning the things that are given to you by people who are manufacturers who may or may not like you, who may or may not be making a nice profit, and you somehow have to keep your standards in this overarching world. You have to make a living and all these things. And so for me, again, slowing down and saying, okay, well, what feels right, what isn't? Let me take my power back. Let me create life as I want it to be. The makeup bit, again, I think there are how we express ourselves, the style, what have you. Everybody's going to look different and everybody's going to be right about what's best for them, right? And you leave it there. Like everyone has their own individual style, their own individual spark, the thing that emanates them. And then there are people who look to the trends and then they follow them, and that is well and good, right? There's something for everyone. Like I said, for me, I have created a life for myself based on what I like, right? And that is what it is. That's okay for me. And the people who do not see my humanity or my femininity or my womanhood or my being and deserving of respect just because I exist, those aren't my people, right? Because again, there are so many different, based on the things that I research, my algorithm is, I'll say, eclectic, right? I don't have a need to, and if you see any smoke coming in, I have an incense burning. um I don't feel the need to go on people's pages that I don't like or don't agree with and tell them, oh, you're wrong, here's why, da 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 da. I live and let live, right? But for me, where I am, I've removed so much pressure off of meeting the standard of what womanhood is. And this is someone who has worked in fashion. I was talking to someone yesterday and I was like, I feel so much better now that I have removed the pressure of like performative, the performative nature of most people in the fashion industry. And if you have lived and worked around that industry, then you will understand what I mean, right? Like, clothes are clothes. Buy what you like, wear what you like, keep what you like, right? Where I have an issue, and the things that I've talked about, especially from an eco luxury lens, has been talking to the leaders of these major corporations who are literally poisoning the waterways and the water systems, littering in countries where it's like you have the money to go and clean up your junk and you're choosing not to. Those are the people that I'm talking to, right? Because there's no excuse to be that cruel to, again, what other people in the Western world may call developing nations. These people are already getting paid based on where they live. Some may call it a livable wage, right? But a lot of the manufacturing has been exported to uh, countries where the labor is cheaper, right? And so they don't have the same structures and laws that a Western civilization will have. But luckily, there have been people who care about the sustainability of the planet and the land and the earth and the resources that are finite, right? Because you still have to have seeds for most of these natural fiber products. Some those seeds are coming from the plants that are grown, and they are recultivated back into the land so that you get more of the same thing, right? But you also have to remineralize the soil. All of this matters, right? So when we're talking to an industry that's overproducing, and then with all those goods, they have no genius idea of how to repurpose that materials to clothe the nations. Like, we have to start holding these people accountable, right? Because again, we're starting to see the pressure burst the pipes, if you will. There, that's the disconnect that I'm talking about, right? So okay, you have your minerals, you make your makeup, etc. Cool. This person has the trademark for this logo mark. This person has a trademark for that logo mark. Here's their formula. It's a little different, but they may use the same manufacturer, and there's just a different label and a couple of ingredients change. Okay, cool. Those are the brands that we'll get to pick from, right? There's not really a lot that's new under the sun. But again, when I start looking at the health outcomes, when I start looking at the environmental factors, after a while, it's going to be harder and harder for us to tell what is the cause of certain things, because we have normalized um, unhealthy living so much, and we just have whitewashed it, white labeled it as wellness, right? So again, when I've had experience working with different organizations that kind of look at this stuff, okay, what are the makeups of these supplements? Is it safe? And then you have the FDA, who has been turned upside down. Like, we don't know who's really on our team as far as like mandating what's healthy and what's not. And this is what we're putting on our body. This is what we're putting in our body. This is what we're putting in our home. Um, Not to be an alarmist, but this is why, for me, taking a step back and saying, hey, you know, there are a lot of fights that I can fight. I'm not going to argue with people who feel like they should be my boss in certain roles, or they feel like they should talk me down because I look a certain way, but they have not cared to understand my perspective that is informed by years of working here, there, and having this formal education. People's bias and bigotry, I'm not fighting that. I can go ahead and start from the ground up on my own YouTube channel and say, okay, make informed decisions. Eat as clean as you can. Make sure you're moving. Make sure you're getting fresh air. Make sure you're keeping track of your delegates and also your local council members. Tell them what's important, right? Like, clean air is something that we all need. Clean water is something that we all need. Affordable housing is something that we all need, right? Livable wages is something that we all need. I'm not going to argue with people who don't realize that the federal minimum wage has not increased in years, right? Or that the federal minimum wage is $7.50. So regardless, if your state decides that they may want to pay you double than that, cool. But technically, we are hustling backwards, right? And so that's why I said, like, I've had to just clear my space to be able to say, I'm not hiding my intellect. I'm not hiding the research that I have. I'm not hiding any of that to make people feel comfortable, to make men feel comfortable in their manhood, when literally I'm worried about surviving, flourishing, and if I have children, they be okay to grow in this world and still be okay in this world when I'm no longer here, right? Giving them the knowledge and the wisdom and the tools that they need, so that if a book is banned, it's something that they memorize, because our civilization focused on oral storytelling, right? Like, there's a really big disconnect between fact and fiction, what's real, what's not. So again, when you start talking about someone's personal style or whatever, if you don't like them, don't like them. But don't sit up here and tell people that, like, this is what is normal, this is what is good, this is how everyone looks. Like, this is not an army, right? If you want a unified look and a certain structure, like, go join an army, right? Otherwise, like, live and let live. Let people look however they want to look, right? And again, I'm not talking about any organized religion, any organized cult, or organization where it is mandated that you wear certain colors or whatever, right? Y'all have your own initiation process, respect, right? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the general population and like what is governing how people live and flourish, right? Because regardless, eventually, if people are not procreating, right? And at this point, we don't know what's causing it. It can be the stress, it can be the microplastics that have seeped into our food and our water over time. And when the scientists were telling us 20 years ago that this was happening and everybody ignored it or tabled it or killed the whistleblowers, now we're seeing the effects of it, right? You have men that are infertile, right? But again, most of the conversation is around women and their virility, and that's often not the case. You have more and more men talking about this now. And again, something happened, whether it is natural selection or what have you, even over in China, the whole one child or two child policy, like now you're seeing the effects of a population in decline. In America, you're seeing a population in decline. Sooner or later, if people do not progenerate, there will be no more humans to occupy this land. There'll be no humans to buy your products, no humans to learn your education, no humans to vote in your systems. And that's what I'm talking about, right? We need healthy humans to be able to reproduce. Why? Because we want to continue civilization in a decent way, at least for the people who know how to cultivate the land, know how to take care of the land. But again, when you have so much misinformation going out in the world and you have the intentional sabotage of this information, we have a problem. And that's why I said I have no issue with saying, hey, I agree with the First Nations people, give them the land back. It was stolen from them, right? For the people who are descendants of chattel slavery, whether they're on islands in the Caribbean or here on Turtle Island, right? Like, give them their just due, because people are still benefiting off of the wealth that slavery created and subjugation created, and no one is telling them they don't deserve it. So again, this whole how people are figuring out a way to get their wealth back to help repair their generations, repair their family, their bloodlines. There's so much in medicine and science that is coming out about bridging the gap of the ancient wisdom of the elders and what modern science knows, and like what was intentionally removed and it is now starting to be put back in place. And so I'm excited, at least, for that a reemergence of wellness, right? Where we're seeing what works, because it's yes and we need healthy humans, right? Otherwise, what's all this for? Again, at some point when you become a consenting adult and you have all this information and you choose your lifestyle based on what is best for you, live your life, right? And in a lot of ways, you can't do that without, again, the recovery that needs to come from what your generations literally had to go through, because that was real trauma that really impacted your DNA. And so when people are afraid to acknowledge that truth, that yes, they can see, and you can repair the DNA. Like, again, if I have the time, I'll list some of my sources. If not, you're an adult, you use the internet on your own. You can start to research what people and scientists have known. And again, if this is a free market, let it be a free market. Let the market decide what is good, but you can't continue to live in this country, this world, misinformed about what is real and what is not. As it stands, there are a lot of people who believe that taxes are illegal, right? But yet we know that the tax system is the one that will always find you, right? Regardless of what you try to hide or where you try to go, they will get with their partners in another country and extradite you right back to the US, right? And that's why I keep telling people, I'm like, I don't care what you have going on. handle your taxes, handle your money. There's no getting around that. And that's what I anchor my reality to. The reality is that if I'm going to grow wealth, I have to plan for taxes. If I'm going to grow wealth, I have to create my baseline, right? If I'm going to grow wealth, I have to decide what my hobbies are, so that those are the things that I'm focusing on instead of all the multitude of distractions and shiny things that would no doubt come up, right? And yes, I may indulge in one thing or two things every now and then, but ultimately, when you are talking about the opportunity of a lifetime to really do well by yourself with the amount of information that you have access to, the amount of creativity that you have access to, it's like that should be enough for you to like put one foot in front of the other, keep going, and like really define your life for yourself, right? Decide the woman that you want to be, decide the man that you want to be, right? I can't teach a man how to be a man, right? But I can share with women some of the things that I've come across in my lived experience that have helped me to inform the woman that I am today, right? So again, when I'm traveling, I'm either focused on the food and the art, right? Is there an art piece that I can buy and take home and keep with me? Like that, let that be my keepsake instead of a tchotchke from a gift shop, because I do have tchotchkes from gift shops, right? But let me show you something. Here's one shot glass from the first trip to Hawaii that has now become a makeshift plant holder, right? May have paid $5 for that at most. But when I go to Hawaii and the reality of the effects of tourism are shared with me by the locals, it kind of removes that illusion of the fairy tale that we're sold through the marketing of getting to that place, right? The real effects of people coming over there with no respect and no regard for their customs, their culture, or the land, and they just assume it's theirs and they act a plumb fool over there. And that type of stuff sticks with me, right? So it's like, I'm like, shit, I don't want to be a colonizer. I don't want to be a settler. I want to learn. Like, tell me, like, you don't have to be cruel to me, right? Because I'm not intending to be cruel to you, but I am listening. Like, I want to know, like, what is your story and how can I help, right? So learning more about the local organizations, they're talking to people on the flights and just the local business owners and stuff, learning their stories and being a more informed visitor, right? Of how Hawaii came to be, right? How the US took it over. And again, you realize, wow, again, what's real versus what is fiction and what we're sold, the story we're sold. So again, it's up to you as a consenting adult to be educated before you go to these places, before you participate in all this stuff, because you're voting with your dollars. And that's why I tell people, I'm like, as consumers, we're the strongest that we can be, because what we buy, what we bring into our home, what we participate in, like that is our power, right? We're using our money to say yes or no. So again, for me, I use my money to enjoy the nice restaurants, to buy art, right? I have more than enough plants as it stands just over the past 8-9 years of living in this home, going to my local nurseries and, oh, this plant, and then someone propagating this plant or whatever. And then, but that's very real as well. It's like, okay, now you want to travel for 3 weeks. Who's going to water the plants? And it's like, oh no, I don't want my plants to die. My life is so full. It's actually overflowing with things that I have loved and cultivated, to the point where like I am now decluttering my life, right? Because it's like, okay, you tried plants, okay, but now you really, really want to get back into traveling, because there's more for you to learn, more for you to incorporate, more for you to hear. And in the meantime, even with that, right, we'll see, oh, it's not eco-friendly to fly all the time. It's not eco-friendly to do this and do that. And it's like, yep, you're right. Okay, so let me research it. Let me go on YouTube. What can I learn without actually having to go to that place? And that's kind of where me finding out about the content creators that do walking tours of places has been really beneficial, right? Because it's like, oh, yeah, I'm not getting to Milan right now in the next hour. Let me just go ahead and watch this walking tour of Milan, see what I see, right? But even still, then the people usually go on the touristy sides of things. Um, but just as an avid learner, I think there's so much that I am realizing that I can fill my time and my space and my life with, that I have so much to live for. And to be bogged down with like, oh, what does she look like? Oh, she didn't put makeup on. Oh, she didn't do this. It's like, this is really what we've come to, where like, again, it's incredibly rude to have an opinion on how people look, because that's how God made them. Like, let's be real. Like, let's be real. And again, I love makeup artists. I love artists of all kinds. They are incredibly talented, right? And the people who spend hours putting on their makeup, because if you see before and after, it's like, this is what I look like without makeup, and this is what I look like with makeup. It's like, sometimes it's a whole different person, whole different person. And so I can understand why some people feel the need to have conversations about that, because it's like, some guys will feel like, yo, who I met is completely different than like when she takes all that stuff off. And so for me in particular, it's like, I like to show the real me, because sometimes I'll put on a wig and sometimes I'll put on makeup, but most of the time I look like my natural self. Most of the time I'm wearing my glasses or my contacts, right? Because I can't see without them. And no, I'm not interested in getting LASIX, because Final Destination, whoever made those movies, I hate you. Because again, I think about that, and I think about the logs on the back of the trucks when I'm driving, because of you guys. Like, why would you supplant that in our mind? Who gave y'all creative license to do that? So no, I am averse to LASIX for that reason. And so I will go find me some really cute glasses and wear those. You're not putting a needle in my eye. I'm sorry. No, thank you. But again, the power of conditioning. So yeah, I really just wanted to share that, how you feel, in my opinion, like I want people around me that, how God made you, right? But just, I hope God made you kind, but you can actually cultivate that kind gene, because I've been around pretty monsters for a lot of my life, by way of living in the DMV area, by way of going back and forth to New York and New Jersey all the time. I'm tired of being around pretty monsters, right? I really, I don't have time for that. Like, there's a whole group of people that are pretty monsters. Y'all go be terrorists to each other, but leave the rest of us alone who want nothing to do with you guys. And I say that with love, right? Like, my life is so rich and valuable to me that like, I don't need any of that in my awareness anymore. And like I said, me taking a step back from participating so heavily in the industry was like, okay, I want to focus on, yes, I have these skills and these talents, but I want to focus on a different part of that, because I see how those people act and I see how they treat each other. You'd be surprised. And even like, I remember like, even when I had certain internships and like working with the fit models, it's like they make in a day what some people make in half the year, right? 2 to 3 days of worth of work is like some people's full year salary, but their body is literally picked apart, right? Like, they are expected to be a walking hanger for the clothes, so you don't exist. Like, you're just a blank. And that's how they're treated, right? It's like, you don't exist, you have no soul, because, oh, that part of her arm, it's like, what do you mean? Like, just and again, I say this lovingly, because the things that you do to create, most of us will work like all day and all night on something, and again, you'll be lucky if we shower. Like I said, I shower. Okay, I brush my teeth, but you have no idea. Like when that creative gene sparks, and they're, especially if you're on deadline, it's like whatever the fuck it takes. Put it on, run to the studio, finish it up, what have you, right? Like y'all have to be very intentional on these internet streets, because there are some of us who like really understand how a lot of this stuff works behind the scenes. And again, me speaking out more is because I found some really wonderful products, services that I'm excited to share with people, because I think they can actually be beneficial. Like I said, by the time I started, talking more with people who just so happen to be spiritualists, it's like we have commonalities, and I can learn from you and you can learn from me. And I'm happy to share my life with you in whatever way we decide is healthy and safe for us both, right? And I feel like, again, I've learned so much where I'm like reading books. I'm more outgoing when I talk to people. I'm helpful with them. And I'm like, I don't ever need to see them again for me to say that was a meaningful connection, right? And so that's why I said, like, just when I start talking about products and you start talking about not only the marketing of it, but the actual production of it. And I'm like, I look at how much creativity goes into a lot of these companies, but when we look at the ownership of it, when we look at certain other economical markers of success or progress, we see that it's not adding up, right? We see that it's still the same group of families that have the concentrated wealth, while the majority of the workers and the creativity and the ingenuity and the progressing forward that is done are by the commoners, who sometimes, more often than not, don't have a pot to piss in. So, I'll leave it at that, because like I said, I still have to finish drinking my Yellow Dock infusion, which that, in addition to some other things, I've been working on my sleep hygiene, just so that I wake up more well rested. I have been, again, just moderating and modulating what I'm doing, what I'm reading, that sort of bit, because I feel so different than like where I was even 4 years ago. I'm not as stressed. Like I am intentionally taking deeper breaths, right? Like the stuff that you have to do to survive in a lot of these circumstances and a lot of these workplaces is not ideal for most people, right? So if you feel the need to go and move to a different country, and you have the means to do it, by all means go do it. I think that, again, for people whose families go back to some of the earlier families that were here on this landmass, I would not tell them to pack up and leave. I would tell them to arm up and get ready for war, because it is what it is. Like, you are going to have more people coming over here with a certain perspective that they are entitled to this land that houses your ancestors' blood, sweat, and tears, and your own blood, sweat, and tears. And they're going to think that they can just steamroll you and take it from you. What are you going to do? Guard yourselves, arm yourselves. Like I said, I'm working with Yellow Dock at the moment, and then I'll move to a different herb. But again, all of that is based on my own genetic composition and my own goals. Like I said, Super Echinacea. This is your immune support. I'm really working on the internal. I have my kimchi, so that's my gut health. Rocking and rolling. I have my regimen that I'm working on. And yeah, I'll get in the gym today, work on some strength training and some cardio. And then I always, like I said, I love incorporating yoga, because some for women in particular, like I said, just some of the things that we may experience or may have experienced, that stuff stays in the body. Trauma stays in your body. And so some of the yoga that I have been doing has been the releasing of some of that stored energy, the releasing and really integrating into my body, being comfortable with my body. Because, and this may be too much information for some, but if you notice, most of us are only taught that our bodies are supposed to be for the pleasure and reproduction of men. And no, this body is your own before it's anyone else's. And from the time we were younger, most girls are taught something completely different. So, like, the reclamation of the female body is really important, especially for women at this time, right? Like, and again, I'm not a man, so I won't tell you that, but I think it is important for that for men as well, because men have been assaulted and harmed as well. And so again, like, just to take back sovereignty over your body, over your land, like, that's really where the world is, right? Like, when you sit down and you look at how things have happened, even like I said, even for my own family, my grandmother was a wonder with herbs, right? Like, she had so many healing remedies. So our family, whether we listen or follow or not, she has given us the blueprint. My granddad has given us the blueprint. Whether we implement it or not, that's on us. So that's why I said, like, for me, I am mindful of a digital community, but I'm also mindful of my own path. And don't miss the message because you're worried about what color my foundation is. I couldn't tell you, right? Because I use Black Radiance now because I love blending the colors. And Milani, I like Milani's products as well. But I use a little bit of everything. And so again, it's my own thing. I won't do, actually did a video where I showed you some of the products that I use, but it's like, don't hold me to it because next year I may be using a different foundation. That's just how the game goes, right? Because I can't be pinned down just on one thing, right? You'll ask me, oh, like I told you, this is a silk scarf. Is it a brand that you would know? No, but it's a silk scarf, right? My cotton hoodie, I couldn't tell you the name brand, but it has my little thumb. So this is, and it's a thick weight. So I love it for this time of year, right? Because I just have on my sports bra under here and I don't have on a shirt. And I'm warm. I look for things that are stylish and functional. I'm not with the Fugazi, oh, it's this and this brand, oh, this up and coming brand. You guys, I've spent so much money. This is the last thing I'll say about that. I've spent so much money supporting independent Black brands from before it was even fetch, right? Because like I said, I am Black identifying. The amount of money that I have spent where like the product was crap, and it's like I'm expected to just be brand loyal because they're Black. And it's like I wind up just throwing away products because it's like it didn't work for me. I have no reason to go and bash them or, trash them on the internet or wherever else. Okay, it just didn't work for me. Cool, it may work for somebody else. And that's what I mean, right? Like, just, I'm good. I have a wonderful life. I have cultivated impeccable taste. I know how to shop. I know how to spend. I know how to save. I know how to invest. Am I still teachable in some areas? Yes. However, I've also been scammed a lot, right? And this is something my cousin and I were talking about with a lot of these Black influencers and these Black gurus that like attempt to help people in the community. It's like I've spent thousands of dollars buying people's digital courses and products. And it's like you realize that they literally are just one level ahead of you and they're just telling you something that they regurgitated and heard or whatever. And it's like, what? I just spent money for, oh, fuck. And this is how they're making their money. Cool. But it took me, like, I'll give you an example. Because I have interest in real estate, some of the stuff that I bought has been real estate and it's been from Black people and white people, right? It took me sitting down with my mom who used to work in commercial real estate and being like, hey mom, I'm looking at da-da-da-da-da. And even my auntie, like I gave my aunt some of the materials and I was like, can you vet this and see? Because she also worked in commercial real estate on the finance side. And so I'm asking her, I'm like, da-da-da-da. She's like, yeah, this is accurate. Yes, this is da-da-da. Cool. This is why I love being able to talk intergenerationally with people who like have lived it and worked it, because it's like I still vet things, right? By the people who worked in these industries. So if they tell me, and even if my own spidey senses tell me it's not cool, like I just throw it away. It's no reason for me to do any of that because it's gonna come back eventually. However, there was an aspect of commercial real estate that I was trying to really understand a bit more. You know what my mom did? We got in that car and we drove down to the tax office, the city tax office, and I got my answer. Saved me thousands of dollars and not having to buy another damn course of da 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 da. So that's what I'm saying. I'm like, oh, okay, I got it. Thank you, Mom. I'm good. I'm good on a lot of stuff that's being sold because, again, you start talking about integrity, you start talking about honesty and truth. I'm like, our own government isn't being truthful to us. The Department of Education is, again, being turned on its head, right? I can go into the museums and find conflicting information about the origins of a people, how they lived, how they survived, and again, see current artifacts that were donated by the living bloodline and descendants of people of a nation right there. But if I come online, I can have a multitude of different stories about what is real and what is not, even sometimes coming from my own government. And that's what I mean, where I'm like, I had to pull back. I had to stop being so busy. I had to stop being so chaotic because now we're talking about my life. Now we're talking about my money. Now we're talking about my family's ability to survive and flourish. And that takes a discerning eye. So again, I have helped so many people in my career. I've helped so many people in my life, and I help strangers. I'm good. Whether whether this video reaches people or not, I'm good. I've done enough. I've done a lot. I will continue doing what is necessary, but not to the detriment of myself, my finances, and my health. And oftentimes, just the energy of people being in need, especially when you see kind of like those GoFundMe's of, you know, people who have fallen on hard times. There may be a funeral they need to plan for, this or that. The baby needs formula, the baby needs diapers, this and that. I had to realize that, like, I can't keep putting myself out to help others, right? When a lot of my conditioning came from be of service woman, be of service girl, right? From the time you're younger to the time you grow up, like me taking back my power included being able to dictate saying yes or saying no to certain things, and even things that pull on me emotionally. That's kind of where I'm at. So again, I have things that I'm trying to accomplish because I'm like, hey, guess what? The reality is we all have one life, right? We all have one life. None of us know when it's going to be over. A lot of people, I can't even care about the fact that a lot of people have issues with their mortality. But when I really think about that, like really hold that in my awareness, I have one life. I have a finite amount of time, and I don't know when that time is going to run out. What do I give importance to? Who is sharing my space? Who is sharing my life with me? How am I paying for my life? What am I doing, right? Where am I going? What am I eating? Now you understand like why I have cultivated the things that I have, because it's like I wake up and I'm happy. I enjoy my life. Like, okay, what are we going to do today? I have enough structure that keeps me going. And again, my first focus was my health, right? Because again, ask someone who's got poor health what their focus is. Depending on their mindset, it might still just be money, right? But we like to hear the anecdote that they're like, the money doesn't matter. If I could have great health, not everybody feels that way, right? Because there are some really wonderful herbs and minerals that can help with reversing a lot of damaging conditions. But it's like it still takes your willpower. It still takes your money to be able to work with the people that have the knowledge and the wisdom and the practice legally to be able to do that, right? We're not even talking about spiritually. You still have everything costs money. So again, I had to sit down and say, you have been helping everyone, including yourself. But now you need to literally just focus on yourself because you are running yourself dry by focusing on this, and that. And so, no has been a phenomenal word for me this year. It has done wonders, right? Like a lot of the inflammation is gone from my body. Um, like I said, I'm happy. I'm mostly contented. There are just those few minor things that I'm like inching to fully resolve. But I can guarantee you that this time next year, I will be able to tell you, like, oh yeah, everything's exactly as it should be, right? And that's the beauty of having the quiet space and being intentional about what's important to you, what's your roadmap, what's your strategy, and removing everything else that doesn't get you there, right? It's like, yes, go with the flow, but know where you're flowing, right? Because if you're flowing in a completely different direction than what you want it to be, like, no, don't just let the wind carry you wherever. Learn a skill, right? So you know where you're going. Know what's your end goal, point A, point B. And you follow your map there, whether it's a physical map, a mental map, what have you. Everything works differently for everyone. I'm at an hour, so I'll say this before I close out. I spent some time working with different planners and journals. I used to always love them from a while ago, and really sitting down and being like, okay, it's December. What do I want to do for the next year? Da, 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 da. I looked at my planner from this past year and I barely used it, right? Because I've been doing more living. I've been doing more things that aren't sitting down, that aren't like writing and being intellectual. And that gives me great pause because I'm like, oh shit, I could probably throw this away now. I don't need it, right? The less I have on my plate, the more that I can keep up here, right? So again, if I only need to remember 2 things for the week, I can keep it up here. I don't have to write it down. I don't need to juggle my and everybody else's stuff. And I realize that I have that unique opportunity because I'm child free, right? And that's why I said I'm really grateful. Like the intention of being a parent, like just living what I lived through, right? And even visiting with friends and family members. And you hear the stories of how parenting, even for people who are married and they have active partners who are also parenting their children, it's still hard for them. Even people with money and resources, parenting is still hard for them. So you can only imagine how hard it is for people at different levels of the socioeconomic ladder. And so for me, like I take that very seriously. I've had friends who were teenage moms, right? People who had to put their dreams on hold to raise children, right? To deal with the outcomes of circumstances. And they made it work, but the toll that it takes, right? So I don't take that lightly. So because of what I have seen, I made a conscious decision to not have children before I could financially take care of them myself, right? Because again, even the Cinderella dream and the this, marry the Prince Charming and the provider, this and that. Have you ever seen men willingly change? Have, let me know the men that you know that listen to their wives or who like actually are really good with their paperwork, etc. that's a whole different story, right? But again, when you start talking about what's real and what's not, every every family is different. But we have so many different humans that are coming together because it's like, oh, I love them, we're gonna do this, and then they get married and they have children, they realize how hard that stuff was, and then they realize why their parents were always arguing. Then they realize why their dad was always stressed, why their mom was always stressed. It's like, because again, you have these tiny humans that eat, and they eat a lot, and they need everything, and they need your attention, and they have so much energy, and they're curious, and they're painting on the walls, and they're eating the plants, and they're pooping on the floor. Because yes, tiny humans do that too. They don't want to wear their diapers, they want to run around, they want to scream, they don't like the way you looked at them that morning, and so they're going to scream, and they have snot in their nose, and they're so cute. But it takes a lot of work. Like I said, I have a lot of nieces and nephews and godkids, and I'm like, oftentimes when the kids' birthday come around, I congratulate the parents on keeping them alive, and I also congratulate them on being alive, because it's hard. Like, I never make light of it. And again, eventually, God willing, they reach old age, and then they help with the ushering in of the younger generations, and the cycle of humaning continues. And so I think if we give more people time to truly think about the life that they want to live, think about the way that they want to cultivate it, so that they're actually happy before they take those steps, I think we will have wonderful health outcomes for just the general population. But right now, there's too much duress, there's too much stress, there's too many competing obstacles that are pressing down upon so many families. And like I said, the holidays are always hard for people for a multitude of reasons, whether they're grieving the loss of children, grieving the loss of parents, um, the loss of a job, right? How they're going to put food on the table. No one likes to see a disappointed kid, right? Even for me, like, if a kid is like, can I have something to do? And I'm like, no, like it really, as a woman, that it really pulls on you. So again, I was like, I have to toughen up, because oh my gosh, I don't even have kids yet. And these little jokers have already ran auntie high and dry. And I'm like, they're not even mine, but I love them this much. And I would, I love them so much, I would live for them, right? So even the framing of that, I'm like, there are people's lives that I want to be an active participant in, and there are people's who I want active participation from in my life. So in order to do that, here are the things that I'm going to do for myself. Here are the things that the partners that I get with will need to do for themselves. I hope that I don't have to say it. Hopefully they will know it. But yeah, let's have a conversation about this. What was this like for you? What was this like for you? How did you overcome that? What's your mindset on this? What's your mindset on that? All those things matter. And oftentimes in the heat of passion, we don't have these honest conversations. So I think by the time, again, reading a lot and coming across different frameworks of different respectable Black men, including Dr. Claude Anderson and Neely Foley Jr., I felt like for the new generations to come, I feel like their framework best suits the mindset that we all need to adopt, right? And so Neely Fuller Jr. has like 100 relationship questions that you should ask anyone before sexual reproduction or sexual play. And he said, because by that point, you'll have all the answers that you need before you go any further. And I think, again, I think we can smartly repopulate the world and do it without so much dysfunction and chaos, because we need healthy people. There's so much that the earth gives us. We need more people who are willing to put in the work to cultivate those things, right? Because we can't all be getting our food and sustenance and stuff from stuff like this that, again, are in plastic containers. And this is not a dig to this brand at all, because obviously it's at my house, right? It served a purpose. But again, when I start learning more about herbalism and going back to the basics, I'm like, yes, glass amber jars, my flax seeds, which again are multi-purpose because I use them in food, and then I also use them in hair care. right? I have my essential oils. I keep those in a dark closet, right? Like, the earth is so good to us, you guys. And again, with where I am in my life, I don't I don't need to argue about what brand am I wearing, where did I get it from, why she didn't put makeup on, why she don't have on a wig, why she don't have baby hairs, why her nails not done. Because even now, I'm like I said, I do my nails at home because I used to get acrylics from the time I was a teen, okay? And that's part of the reason why I don't have eyebrows anymore. It's because I used to get my eyebrows shaped and plucked, and jokers never grew back. So I've been using like oils and stuff, massaging them and all that stuff. It's like, and I'm probably gonna have to get eyebrow transplants. Over plucking does this. So some of the stuff that we like that are vanity items, um, they actually destroy like our bodies. You read the warning labels on nail polish. You read the warning label on nail polish remover, and it's like, yeah, it looks good, but it's killing us. You have to pick your trade-offs. And by let me, because I don't want anybody to come at me trying to sue me for saying that I said their nail polish brand is a imminent threat. I'm talking about the chemicals that are in there, and we think about again just all the chemicals that we are putting into ourselves. So by the time you get a sickness or illness, it's really no telling what is the cause of it. You have to start isolating certain things, removing certain things from your life, especially when you're committed to being healthy, right? So for me, I still love the look of manicured nails, etc. But my trade off was I no longer go to the salons. I do it at home myself, right? So I have my foot bath, I have my tools, I have my soaks and stuff like that. But that also allowed me to incorporate my body care products into that, right? So my goat milk uh, bath soak that I added a couple more ingredients to for foot salt, right? Like just working with some of the products and the essential oils, some dried flowers, etc. I have a good time. My polishes, I'm very discerning about the brands that I use because, again, years of being a girl and then a woman means I've tried a lot of stuff, right? Like, so from the dollar store nail polish to the beauty supply store nail polish, like, there's certain brands that I know I can trust the quality of them, right? I have my colors, right? And keep it going. I replace the nail polish when I need to. I replace this and that. I do my treatments. I do my oils. I do my scrubs, etc. There's so much I love about being a woman. But again, I realized that there were some other elements that were missing from it, and that was the wellness component. That was the holistic, the indigenous, if you will, remembering and recalling of we know how to heal ourselves, we know how to take care of ourselves. There are things that yes we lost, but you can ask to be guided on how to incorporate those things back in. So that's why I said like my life is good, I am great, and the things that are still recalibrating, by next year I'll be more than fine. So I think I'll end it there because I'm getting a little hungry, so I'm going to finish my tea, and I don't know what I'm going to eat yet because again I can have my delicious oatmeal that I don't know if you saw my post, but I shared that by adding a little bit of pink Himalayan salt on top of it, just took it over the top, and I was like so overjoyed. And I was like, oh my God, this is so delicious. I couldn't take it, but it's delicious. I love nourishing and nurturing myself. I can have a savory breakfast. I can have a sweet breakfast. I can fast, right? The world is my oyster, and I gladly cultivate it as such. And I am still deciding how and where I will be working with strategic partners. I also made a post about just holding tech accountable for a lot of the issues that some of their own employees have brought up about how tech can be harmful, and they did nothing about some of those things. And again, I have real questions about AI and its adoption at the larger scales, especially when you start talking about e-commerce. And again, you start talking about the degradation of resources. I personally, as a consumer and a business owner, have issues about that, have questions about that. So I am going to create a criteria that I expect the people that I give money to as a business owner to meet. And so as it stands right now, my websites are down. I was using both Shopify and Squarespace. I've been using Squarespace for years, right? And that's why I said, like, I don't talk about a lot about the work that I've done for clients and even myself. But as a contractor, I've done a lot along the sales process, right? Whether it is e-commerce platform, blogging, content marketing, ghostwriting for CEOs. I've done a lot. Um, and so some of these companies have gotten so big that they feel like they don't have to care or be accountable for the harm that they've done to individual creators, individual business owners, but also the world at large. And that is part of the reason why, like, we all know that government oversight comes a few years too late, right? But as consumers, we have to start holding these institutions accountable, these private companies accountable, because if we don't, no one else will. If you can just pay the fine as a company, if you could just pay the fine, like, there's no real consequence for the harm that most people or most companies do to people in this world. And that is the unfortunate truth. I think the EU has done a better job of holding a lot of these tech companies accountable, but the US is very slow on that. And again, just as someone who has worked in geopolitics, who's worked in the NGO space, who's worked in technology, who leverages technology, who knows the impact of what we're doing, there are a lot of people who don't care, they're just making money. And that's fine for them, but it's not fine for me. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to house my intellectual property, to leverage it, to create community in all those ways. But for now, YouTube does have a community feature that I was able to enable, so we might just be able to do it here. So like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. I'll probably post something on the community board so you can see that post pop up in your feed. But yeah, stick around if any of this resonated with you and you feel like I'm someone that you want to be a strategic partner with. The world as we know it is changing, and we need more visionaries who are willing to, again, just do the work and show up, right? Like, people love to say there's enough room for us all, and I think the algorithm says something completely different. So yeah, I encourage, and again, I say that with no ill feelings towards YouTube. But yeah, I think that there are real conversations around intersectionality and the harm and the outcomes of communities and free market that are not adequately addressed just yet. There are a lot of people who are making inroads from the places where they can, whether that's politically, whether that's financially, whether that's vocally. But as we all know, at the end of the day, the only common signifier that we all can respect is money. And that's me saying that being the tree hugging, natural lover that I am, right? Like, because if people really cared about what the indigenous elders were saying, then what was going on in the Amazon rainforest and a lot of the flags that have been flown regarding pipelines and land back, we wouldn't still be fighting so hard for visibility and awareness if people truly respected the earth, truly respected the elders, truly respected the first peoples and their descendants, and how they are asking for us to show up for them. So again, that's the reality of where we are. And who knows, maybe next time I do a video like this, I'll put on a full face of makeup and a new wig so you can see what a bust down looks like. Anyway, happy Monday. I hope you have a great week.